Hello! And it's time to put all those bits that I got out of those boxes yesterday and make them into a computer. And if you didn't see me take all the bits out of the boxes, then watch the first video. But today, let's get all those bits and pieces put together and made into a gaming computer. And once I've built a gaming computer, I'm going to enjoy sharing some of my favourite games. And hopefully, I'll be playing some of your favourite games. So let's not hang around and let's get on with it. Let's get this lot together. So, taking out the heatsink that came with the motherboard, on the back of that heatsink is a little sticky pad that you pull off. That's got to be moved. And that one that's in the motherboard won't come off. And it actually needs to stay there because that's what the heatsink attaches to. So that's what one of those screws in the packets was for. You put that in the right place depending on the size of your SSD. And that just screws in like that. Pop that in. Yep. Springiness is normal. That's what I was looking for. Screw. All becomes obvious in the end. Heat spreader. So just pulling off that little blue sticky covering bit on the back of the SSD M.2 heatsink. Looks like it's touching. So, DDR4. So this doesn't have any different colours on the memory slots, but we do have a little list here. A2 and B2 first. So that looks to me, and that goes there, and that goes there. Now I think before I put that in, I'm going to work out the cooler. AM4. grab this little booklet. So yes, it looks like we've got the Intel plate pre-installed on here. So how does that come off? Easy enough. Twist off. Sorry, did not catch that. So this bit I regret doing. I take off the Intel plate and the little plastic covering that protects the heatsink compound that's already on there, and once the AM4 plate's on there I can't get that protector back. I do try and work around it, but it's not ideal. Shame that's not designed to fit over that to protect that, but still, to be careful with that. Right, what does this say? Intel backplate. Display sources. So I'm going to replace the CPU heatsink holder that comes with the motherboard with the one that comes with the all-in-one Kraken. Just a few screws to change over. I reckon they go on there instead of that. What do you lot reckon? So that goes on there. So it doesn't matter how many computers you've built before, always read the instructions if you're in doubt. In fact, read the instructions before you start. Remove the stock mounting bracket. So, even after I looked at the instructions, I still managed to put these on upside down the first time. Why is that one bigger? Weird. I'll put these out the wrong way. Yes, I am. We can pop the processor in now. Again, don't touch the pins on these. More for how easy they are to damage. So particularly clearly marked, but there's a triangle in that corner. There's a triangle in this corner, yeah. Lift the lever. Drop the processor in. Drop the lever. Done. So, next step I think is to mount the water cooler inside the case. So we need to get that assembled and then we'll pop that in the case. So let's make some space. Remove the this interior bracket comes out so that you can assemble the water cooler onto the bracket, and then just 2 screws however that comes out. Is it 2 screws? Yeah, just a bit stiff. Oh, the fun I had with putting this together and getting it in the case. It's not that it's difficult to put together, it's just that you've got to put it together exactly the right way around to get everything to fit nicely. I do end up changing it so that the heat pipes are at the bottom of the case, but more of that in part 3. So, after a little bit of trial and error, I finally worked out that the bracket screwed on top of the fans. So, the fans sandwiched between the bracket and the radiator. I put 1 screw up in the corner just to hold the bracket and the fan onto the radiator, just so that I could then get the other bits and pieces in place and then add the other screws. So, those observant of you would have noticed that I've turned the radiator around. I did want to put the heat pipes at the bottom, but there just isn't space to put the heat pipes at the bottom because these screws won't do up what I'm doing up now. So I flipped it around. Goes on the same, just round the other way, so the pipes are at the top. So, time to get the motherboard in the case. It's just a case of carefully lining it up with all the pre-installed spacers that are on the case and getting the back plate panel in the correct place. After finding the packet with the correct size screws in it, let's screw all the screws in. I'm getting ready to mount the heatsink bracket onto the processor, but before doing so I'm just cleaning the top of the CPU with an isopropyl alcohol wipe. So I put the bracket screws on loosely and then tightened them opposite corners so that the bracket went down evenly. They just need to be nipped up, don't over tighten them. So once I started installing these cables into the heat block, I thought it would have probably been easier to have done it beforehand, but it wasn't too difficult. So, getting ready to put the graphics card in, I need to remove some of the blanking plates and the top bracket from the back of the case. That top bracket is designed to allow the graphics card to mount vertically, but we'll discuss that more in part 3. So next is the power supply, and the power supply comes with a box full of cables, enough to use every connector on the power supply. So I'm just sorting through now the ones I need. These first two cables that I put in are for the power to the motherboard, and this first one sits up just on the left hand side of the processor. The nice thing about this case is it's pretty easy to get all of the cables through various slots and holes so that they can all be run at the back and out of sight. These are the two cables that I'm going to need for the graphics card. So these cables tucked through the hole at the bottom of the case and come out just behind the power supply. I plugged all the connectors into the back of the power supply before installing the power supply because there's just not a lot of space behind there once it's in. So I now need to get all those cables that I've stuck through the back and are hanging in various locations tidy. And really the easiest way to do that is just to sort of see where they sit, see where the closest channels are in the back of this case. And there's quite a few. It's very good for cable management. Get them where you want them and tie them in, either using the ties in there or the cable ties that are included. So these are the finished positions for the front panel connectors and the two USB connections, one going to the case controller for the RGB built into the case, and the other one is going to the RGB controller for the all-in-one cooler. That's a look at the finished cabling on the inside of the case, and that's a look inside the back panel after I'd finished tidying up the cables. So, desk tidy, get it moved around, get a monitor connected to it, and let's switch this thing on for the first time. So I'm just looking through the BIOS just to make sure that everything that I've put in here is showing up correctly. The processor's correct, the SSD's correct, and get it booted up and Windows installed next. So I purchased an OEM serial from the internet and downloaded a USB install for Windows 10 from the Microsoft website. So the fastest way to install Windows 10 is definitely from a USB stick on a USB 3 port, but this has to be the fastest Windows 10 install I've ever done on any computer, and that's got to be a lot down to the M.2 drive that's in this machine. So everything seems to be working. I've just got to work out that RGB connector for the cooler. So the RGB cable shown in the picture here doesn't plug into anywhere. It's just there to connect into the next or another compatible device if you had one. In this case I didn't. So now I'm happy that everything's working. It's time to put the side panels on. That's the build finished. Join me in the next part where I'll be looking at installing the software for the RGB stuff that's in this computer. I'll also be going over a few bits and pieces that I've changed and some additions that I've added. So, thanks for watching.